This week on Supercars Talk, Jimmy Golding gets his first pole position, Broc Feeney takes all the wins, and Jamie Whincup says flashing your lights is naughty naughty. The big news this week is that Dylan O'Keefe will be partnering Nick Percat for the endurance races. It's not the big news. We could kind of see this one happening. He had been with the team for a test day and that. It's an uninspired choice for someone who is now fourth in the championship, but this will be a good chance for Dylan to prove his worth. He has been doing relatively well in his other racing activities, and this will finally give him what I'd say a proper shot at the endurance races to show what he can do. The actual big news this week, though, is that it's looking increasingly likely that there will be a Perth street race in 2026. The rumours were abound over the Perth weekend, but it's been formally announced that, it's likely to go ahead. I will miss the Wanneroo track. I would really like to see possibly a second round over in Perth, not a back-to-back kind of thing. It is talked about that this will be the opening round of the 2026 season at the streets there, and I would like to then see a sprint round later on, kind of mid-year there at Wanneroo. I always think Wanneroo produces good racing, and it is something a little bit different, but it is exciting to see a new track getting there on the calendar and a big event there to fill in the hole that is Newcastle at the moment, and I just thank God we don't have to go to Bathurst for an opening event again. The other big news this week is that Tickford will be running a wild card at the Sydney Super Night for Lockie Dalton. He's one of their Super 2 drivers this year, and really good opportunity for him. We saw what Cooper Murray did over the weekend in the Triple Eight wild card. Hopefully there is more of these announcements to come. Now, before we get onto the racing for this week, one thing that stood out a lot was Brody flashing his headlights at Will Brown during the top 10 shootout. It was a bit of a joke. He was talking to the commentators at the time. Everyone seemed to enjoy it, including Will Brown. And then the Triple Eight Fun Police had to put in a complaint. And now it looks like there will be a rule change that you will not be allowed to do this anymore. Another rule for the sake of having rules. I don't know why we needed to look into it. It's just, it's not a good look. It just sounds stupid. Everyone saw it as a bit of a joke. And now we've got more rules. Unfortunately, I think things like this could definitely be handled better. Just let them go. It's a bit of fun. Obviously, you don't want guys, kind of running into the back of people and things like that, I suppose. So maybe at the next event or whatever, where you're having the driver's briefing, say to them, look, it's all a bit of fun, but let's not push it any further than that, and be done. Why do we need more rules? Now, as it seems to be a bit of tradition these days, everybody released their liveries at the last possible minute, so we had a big flood right at the end there. I don't know why some of these guys don't start releasing them, at least 2 weeks before, and then you get a bit in the news cycle. It was just bam, 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 kind of on the Thursday, a heap of liveries come out. Anyway, I'm going to give a bit of a rundown as I talk about the teams rather than my usual kind of going through them all properly individually. And as I run through the teams, kicking it off once again, it is Blanchards, who now find themselves at the bottom of the pecking order once again. The Cool Drive car looks a bit, let's tick the boxes. It was a livery, The Snow River Caravans car, though, outstanding. They did a really good job last year. This one even better. Nice and bright, totally different to the normal livery. Thumbs up. One of my favourites there, and I think I gave a little bit of preference to the guys who really changed the livery up. These guys, it was totally different, something totally out of the ordinary. I'm really happy with that one. For the racing over the weekend, though, Aaron Love, slowest in both practice sessions and qualifying sessions. Courtney wasn't that much further ahead. I guess at least Aaron didn't get himself involved in any accidents over the weekend. He was just slow. He did get to move forward though because of people being in accidents there. James Courtney, on the other hand, he got himself into that needless kind of crashing with Thomas Randall on Saturday that ripped off kind of the side of the car. And then he, not his fault really, but he was involved in that the first lap mounting incident on Sunday there, and there was enough damage that he had no real pace all day. As I said, they're back at last in the team's championship. They had actually moved themselves ahead of the BJR B team after Perth, but now they're back last in the championship. Now, BJR, they find themselves second and third last in the championship now. The hefty heights of the forward Heimgartner duo that they'd actually got themselves up a bit in the championship. Now they're back with their brethren. Not great. As for the liveries, there was 2 hits and 2 misses. The Middies car, outstanding. Normally, since Middies has gone to BJR, I think they've probably been some of the worst liveries in the field. This one though, totally different. It stood out. The colours really popped on it. I love that kind of black background, the hands on the front, all of that. Really, really good job. SCT was obviously the other hit from the team. The other 2 were a little bit light on, box ticking kind of exercises they looked. The RJ wasn't bad, but they're just kind of filling in a bit of colour where the colour was before, which is a criticism, as you'll see as we go through. Cooper Murray probably regrets getting close to any of the BJR cars over the weekend. He was punted off by Jackson Evans for 22nd position on Saturday. That gave Jackson a 15-second time penalty, and then of course Jaime mounted him on Sunday. Totally unmounted him up and undressed the car. Yes. It was amazing that Jaime didn't get more damage from that. They just came back to the pits, bolted new tyres on, and off he went. Just absolutely ridiculous that car kept going through the race after all of that. Nothing to report on the other guys. They were just there, and that's probably why they've dropped to 10th and 11th in the team's championship. Best results over the weekend, Jaime on Saturday with 9th and Jackson 11th on Sunday. Probably the big thing is that Jackson is moving ahead of, one of his teammates so far. Next up, we have Erebus. Big fall from grace, these guys. But Brody's paint job, that was ticking the boxes. I mean, you've got no sponsors to keep happy, so you could have really gone all out on that. Didn't mind the tyre power livery. It was too subtle. They've done a reasonable job. I think tyre power probably looked better on the MSR car. Bit interesting there that they're, kind of across both of them. It has been confirmed that tyre power deal is for 5 rounds as well. The following Townsville, Sandown, Bathurst and Gold Coast, it will be in some kind of tyre power colours there. Interesting that they got a bigger kind of name sponsor for Jack LeBrock before Brody. Anyway, Saturday, I was just thinking, what the hell has happened to this team? Brody didn't even make the start with the electrical gremlins that the car had all weekend. LeBrock could only muster 13th in the race, and it really looked like the wheels had fallen off the wagon. I was writing some very different things about this team on Saturday night, but Brody had an engine change, and whatever they did, it worked. Got himself in the top 10 shootout, second in the top 10 shootout. Jack was 5th as well, so it's not like it was just one of them. Both of them were right up there. It was looking like the Erebus of old without the big name sponsor on the car. In the race, they were very, very strong. Brody was no match for the 888 guys, but he was the next in line with no one else really troubling him. Jack ended the day in 6th. Really strong result for the team. Probably the best of the year. I think the big takeaway from this weekend is that Todd Hazelwood did 2 rounds for 303 points. Brody has now done 3 rounds for 303 points. They're both on the same amount of points, but Brodie also had 2 DNFs in there, so that shows you, yeah, it hasn't been great, but he hasn't overall done, in the races that he's finished, he hasn't done any better than Todd Hazelwood. So either was Todd Hazelwood doing a really good job, or yeah, it's a bit of a loss, this one at the moment. If they can keep this momentum that they had from Sunday, it'll all be roses again, but yeah, who knows, Townsville race 1, they could be back to nowhere. Premier Racing. As I discussed last week, liveries were a bit, they did actually look better on TV though than what they did in the promo shots, I thought. Timmy Slade, it was a pretty good weekend from him, really. He was in both of the top 10 shootouts, drifted a little bit in the races, 12th and 13th at the end of the day, but typically, he's probably been qualifying a little bit higher and drifting more in the races, so it is an improvement. Jimmy Golding, the weekend that he came of age, fastest in Friday qualifying, so the only man who could have won the Triple Crown. He did back that up with pole in the first top 10 shootout. He drifted to 4th in the race. That wasn't helped by the dive bomb from Broc van Gisbergen early on, that kind of put him offline, and Winterbottom got through. Then Brown got him towards the end of the race. You can be forgiven for that, because that's a typical Brown kind of move. Passing people during the race. Anyway, he did back it up as well on Sunday. He was 4th on the grid, 4th in the race, just missing out on the podium both days, but that saw him jump from 12th in the points right up to 5th just over this weekend. It is only one weekend, but is this a turning point in Premier Racing, and does this justify Brodie kind of moving there next year? Team 18, liveries seemed like they ticked a box. Reynolds tradie one, I think that was probably the worst of the lot. That was worse. I don't mind it as a base looking car, but it was like they didn't put any effort into it. The DeWalt one was like, 3% more effort than the tradie one, really. They just added a bit of flair to the yellow bits. They could have really, added the whole car through the black and everything and done a really good... Anyway, that's enough about that. Weekend, a bit like Erebus, a tale of two halves. Both of them made the top 10 shootout on Saturday, 3rd and 7th on the grid. That saw Winterbottom 2nd in the race. It was like Winterbottom from Darwin last year. Reynolds kept his position in 7th there. Sunday, on the other hand, though, whatever changes they made to the cars overnight, wrong way to go. Qualifying 18th and 21st. At least Reynolds did make his way forward in the field and ended up 12th. A long way off where they were on Saturday, though. Winterbottom, he was slowed with a cross-threaded wheel nut in the pits, but yeah, he didn't seem to have a heap of pace anyway. Matt Stone Racing. As I covered off last week, I quite liked both of these liveries. I like their base livery, and when they're throwing different things at it, they seem to do a pretty good job at the moment. Cam Hill is probably still a little bit inconsistent. He is learning. Traditionally, though, this year it seems to be that his Sundays are better than his Saturdays, so he is actually learning over time. There does seem to be an improvement each weekend. So the 19th in qualifying and the race on Saturday, but then Sunday he made the top 10 shootout. He was 6th. It was a pretty solid race. He did ultimately end up 9th, but at least, when you look at the company around there, doing a pretty good job for a second year guy. Percat, 2 very solid races once again. He finished 8th and 5th in those. Even more impressive was Sunday. He only qualified 13th, had a bit of an issue with the car in qualifying, and he moved from 13th to 5th there in the race. Back up to 4th position in the championship. This is not the same guy who was at Walkinshaw Andretti United the last couple of years. This is the Nick Percat that did brilliant things at BJR, and he's going from strength to strength this year. It just totally justifies Matt Stone's, punt on him. Was a big risk, but it's definitely paying off. Tickford Racing. they were there over the weekend. Their liveries were better than the previous ones, but they were still they were okay. Randall got himself involved in that crash with Courtney on Saturday for P0. Apparently Waters finished 6th in that race. I don't really recall him being there. Nothing. Sunday, 14th and 15th in the race. Just a very anonymous weekend. I don't know what else to say about it. Grove Racing. Liveries were a bit too subtle. The whole weekend was a bit too subtle. Neither of them made a top 10 shootout over the weekend. The only real time we got to see him on TV was when Payne didn't make the grid on Sunday. He did get a bit of a free kick in that race with that early safety car, but then he punted Ryan Wood off at turn 1 during the race, earning himself a 15-second penalty. Results of 14th and 15th and 10th and 20th on Sunday. These guys were expected to lead the Ford charge. They were second in the team's championship at the start of the year, and they're having, hopefully this is just that mid-season slump that they had last year, and they come back on strong when Garth Tander gets in the cars and sorts them out for the endurance races. Dick Johnson Racing. Now, these liveries knocked it out of the park. Right up there as one of my favourites. Don't be scared to change your livery, DJR. Look at what happens when you, just fill the car with red. The wild card at Bathurst last year, outstanding. The world doesn't come to an end when you change the livery, as proven by this weekend. Anyway, enough on that. When you consider what these guys were doing at the start of the year, they've just solidly been chipping away at it, probably a little bit quicker than what I expected, but they're doing really well. 10th and 11th on Saturday in the races, 7th and 8th on Sunday. They're not headline results. They never looked like they were going to challenge the front guys, but they probably would have killed for these kind of results at the start of the year, just being that really, really solid in just that kind of bunch off the lead pack. Really good from them. They're impressing me at the moment, the way they're moving forward. And they've kept their carbon neutral accreditation with the FIA. I know that's very important to all you fans out there. Walkinshaw and Dreddy United, second in the team's championship. How? As I covered off last week, the liveries looked great. Really impressed with those guys. As for the racing, Ryan Wood had a nothing weekend. Wasn't helped when he got punted off by Matt Payne. And then he was also involved in the overtaking of Dave Reynolds on that safety car restart that was an absolute mess for some reason. Chaz's race pace, absolutely amazing. There was about 7,000 cheeseburgers or something there on Saturday night, because 22nd on the grid to 5th in the race. No safety cars in that race. No safety cars, 22nd to 5th. He passed 17 guys out on track in, 45 laps. It's amazing, that drive. Absolutely outstanding. But you got to learn to qualify. Sunday, same again, 20th on the grid. He was moving forward. I think he was up to 15th. They botched the pit stop, went back to 20th, got himself back to 16th. You have to wonder if they hadn't botched the pit stop, it wouldn't have been as impressive as the Saturday, but plenty of race pace, just no qualifying pace there. For all the WAU fans out there, it looks like it may be a bit of a tyre issue. We're back to tyres that they like in Townsville, so maybe it might return back. But overall, a bit of a disappointing weekend. Chaz is a solid third in the Drivers' Championship, but he's just getting further and further. He's nearly that magic one round away from the Triple Eight boys. Now, for the championship leaders in more ways than one, Triple Eight. We're so used to these guys doing such a good job with these Indigenous liveries. This year I was actually a little bit disappointed in them, probably a little bit too subtle. The Super Cheap Auto wildcard car though, on the other hand, really bright, really stood out, really job well done on that one. So that wildcard, Cooper Murray, yeah, Saturday, he didn't qualify last. He was doing okay. He was punted off by Jackson Evans. He did have the fastest lap in the race. That was quite an impressive day one. Day two, Sunday, got himself in the top 10 shootout. He was 5th in qualifying. When they went out and did their first laps, I just thought, oh yeah, okay, it's, you know, first lap, everyone else will get their eye in and he'll end up, you know, kind of down in 20th or whatever. No, he bangs in an even faster lap and gets himself there. Top 10 shootout, only got 10th. Kind of expected. Really good job for a wild card. But then he got the mounting of all mountings from Jaime on lap 1. Not his fault, but these things happen. Yeah, and the car kind of got stripped off. Surprising, they stuck it back together with tape. I don't know why we needed a safety car. Both of them drove back to the pits. Anyway, it is what it is. You know, we've got to have safety cars for some reason. It would have been good to see whole weekend without a safety. Anyway, yeah, they taped it back together. He went back out. It looked like an abomination. Somehow, I think he's still got the 5th fastest lap on the day somehow. Yeah, it will be now really interesting to see how it goes in the endurance races with Lounsey. He got to experience the car and all that on Sunday. Yeah, got a lot of laps in and a lot of experience. Anyway, the main guys, Feeney and Brown, basically didn't put a foot wrong all weekend. You could say qualifying on Saturday was a bit lackluster. They were only 2nd and 6th on the grid. Lackluster, 2nd and 6th on the grid. Broc van Gisbergen obviously did the dive bomb early on Golding to take the lead on Saturday and then drove away. Will Brown worked his way up to 3rd position, and then 1st and 3rd on the grid on Sunday, which turned into a 1-2 in the race. Yeah, normal programming resumed. Broc Feeney bounced back. I wasn't expecting him to. He has bounced back. He's got the championship lead down to 108 points. It was out to a whopping, I think it was 136 before the weekend, but it had been going in the wrong direction this weekend. He pegged it back, which it is very hard to start pegging back when, you know, your teammate finishes 2nd and 3rd over the weekend. But yeah, both of them doing a really good job. The big blot on the copybook was, of course, putting in that complaint about the light flashing in the top 10 shootout. That just put a kind of sour taste in the mouth of what was quite an impressive weekend, really. So that's my Darwin review. Let me know down in the comments, what did you think of the racing on the weekend? And do you think we need a rule to say that you can't flash your lights at another competitor during a top 10 shootout? Or should we just cover it off in the next driver's briefing and say, look, we don't want to see this anymore, and leave it at that? Anyway, until next time, I'm still Dave, and I'll catch you later.